I turned 55 alone. Not because I chose to, not because I needed space, but because everyone I loved decided I wasn't worth their time. For weeks leading up to my birthday, my wife, Jessica, and even my own damn parents kept teasing me with the same line. There's a surprise coming. Just wait, you're gonna love it. She smiled that smug smile she always wore when she thought she had the upper hand. I thought maybe it was a cabin getaway, or that old Corvette I always talked about. Hell, even dinner with the family would have meant the world to me. But on the day, nothing. Not a call. Not a message. I stood in our living room at 6 p.m., the table set for 6, steaks marinating, wine breathing, and silence. Then it happened. My phone buzzed. A single link from an unknown number. I clicked it, thinking maybe someone accidentally sent me something, maybe a surprise video. What I saw was my entire world crashing. A video, sunny, golden beaches, cobblestone streets, high-end boutiques. My parents, my wife, her best friend Rachel, and some guy I didn't recognize at first. Until Jessica wrapped both arms around his neck, laughed into his ear, and kissed him like I was already dead. Then the voiceover came. My mother's voice. He won't be hurt by this. He's strong. He'll understand. Happy birthday, sweetheart. That was the end of the clip. I sat there, phone in hand, face frozen, like someone just poured acid into my ears. Not even a sorry, just that smug, pitiful, he won't be hurt by this. They were sipping wine in Rome, while I was sipping dust in Ohio. No cake. No call. No wife. No dignity. I didn't cry. Not at first. I just stared at the screen. Played the video again. Paused on Jessica's face, mid-laugh, her lipstick smudged against a man who wasn't me. I zoomed in, checked his watch. Rolex. Checked his hand. No ring. I felt something inside me die. I didn't call anyone. Not my wife. Not my parents. I went on autopilot. Walked upstairs, opened her closet. Empty. She took the good luggage. Hers and mine. She even left my socks on the floor like she wanted me to know she didn't care. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat in our bed. The sheets still smelled like her perfume, Versace Dylan Blue, fake affection in a bottle. The next morning, I posted a photo of myself on Instagram. Me, shirtless, in the gym. Caption, stronger than ever. Then I went further. Booked a local yacht ride with Tanya, a friend from work who always had too much cleavage and too much interest in a married man. I let her post a picture of me holding her waist, looking into her eyes like I'd never been married. 3 hours later, my phone nearly exploded. 299 missed calls. From Jessica, my mom, my dad, even Rachel. Suddenly, I was the problem. Now they cared. But I didn't answer. Not yet. Because deep down, I wasn't sure what I wanted more, revenge or answers. And in that moment, between silence and rage, I knew one thing for sure. The surprise wasn't over. I let the calls pile up. I watched the screen light up again, Jessica, then mom, then unknown number. Probably that smug bastard with the Rolex, trying to do damage control now that I flipped the script. I didn't answer any of them. Not because I was calm. Not because I was above it. But because if I spoke to any of them, I would have lost it. I would have said something I couldn't unsay. Something dark. Something I'd regret only because it gave them the satisfaction of seeing me crack. Instead, I grabbed a whiskey, neat, and sat back in the leather chair Jessica once called the ugliest piece of furniture she's ever allowed into her life. That chair had seen me through long nights, big wins, and now it would hold me as I tried to put together the shattered bones of whatever was left of my self-respect. I opened her laptop. She didn't log out. Her emails? A landfill of betrayal. There were threads with Rachel, giggling in typed form about how Tom is just too dull to notice. Tom. That's me. Dull. That's what she called the man who put her through med school, paid off her student loans, and rebuilt her credit after she maxed out cards trying to become a lifestyle influencer. And then I saw his name. Chase Langston. It sounded fake. Like a romance novel character or a guy who sells yachts to the rich and stupid. I searched him. CEO of some startup that made money off people's loneliness. Dating app with an AI twist. His face popped up, smug and golden tanned. The same face in the video, pressed against my wife's. Their messages were sickening. Can't wait till we're alone in Paris again. Jess, you make me feel like I own the world. And her reply? You already own me, baby. I only belong to you. I choked. I literally choked reading it. Not just on whiskey on rage. She said those words to me once. When we first moved into our home. The one she now used as her storage unit while she played mistress in Europe. And then I opened the attachments. Photos. Not the kind you want to see. Intimate moments that burned themselves into my brain like acid through cloth. Not just him and her, but them, together in my shirts, in hotel beds, making a goddamn joke out of everything I thought was sacred. I closed the laptop. Not because I was done, because I couldn't take more without punching through a wall. My fists were shaking. I looked down at my hands, veined, scarred, the hands of a man who built a life, a business, a family. Hands now useless to fix the one thing that mattered most, trust. Then her text came through. We need to talk. It's not what it looks like. Are you joking? She couldn't even find the decency to show up to my birthday dinner. But now she had the guts to pretend this was all just a misunderstanding? A minute later, another message. Chase and I, it just happened. It was complicated. I still love you. I didn't want you to find out like this. Didn't want me to find out like this? Like how, Jess? On my birthday, while you and your lover clink wine glasses in Florence, and my parents cheer you on like I'm a burden they finally tossed? I poured another drink. This one burned less. The numb was setting in. My doorbell rang. It was Tanya again. She brought a bottle of wine and a smile I wasn't ready for. She stepped in without asking, placed her hand on my chest, and whispered, "You look like you need someone who actually sees you." And for a second, I considered it. Not for love. Not for comfort. For revenge. But I stopped. Not because I'm noble. Because I didn't want to become what she already turned me into, a bitter, broken version of myself scrambling for scraps of validation. Instead, I kissed Tanya on the cheek, thanked her, and told her I needed time. When she left, I opened my phone and typed a message. Just one sentence. You made your choice. Now live with it. I had sinned. And for the first time in 24 hours, I breathed. 2 hours later, she was on my porch. Jessica, dressed like she came straight from a magazine shoot. High heels, black coat, sunglasses even though the sun was down. She stood there like she hadn't just shattered my life in high definition. I opened the door slowly, not because I was hesitant, but because I wanted her to feel the weight of the silence she created. Tom, she started, voice soft like she was auditioning for pity. I know this looks bad. I didn't say a word. Just leaned against the doorframe and waited for the circus to begin. She pulled off her glasses, eyes red, but not from crying. From trying to look like she cried. I didn't plan any of this, she said. It just got out of control. You kissed him in front of my parents, I said flatly. That's not out of control. That's planned. Her lips trembled. They were just trying to support me. Support you? By abandoning me on my birthday and flying to Europe to toast your affair. She didn't answer that. Just looked down, like the floor had something more forgiving than my eyes. I was suffocating, Tom, she finally said. You never changed. You were always just here. Predictable. Boring. There it was. The truth. The mask peeled back. I took a slow breath. So Chase gave you what I couldn't? She smirked, actually smirked, and said, he made me feel alive again. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the absurdity had hit its peak. You felt alive when you sent me that video? That was Mom's idea, she said quickly. She thought, if you saw how happy we were, maybe you'd stop clinging. Clinging. That's what 2 decades of loyalty got reduced to. I stepped aside. Get your stuff. What? Your stuff. Get it. Tonight. You don't live here anymore. Tom, don't be dramatic. Dramatic? Jessica, you staged a disappearing act on my birthday and sent me a breakup tape from Europe with my family in it. That's not drama, that's sociopathy. Her face tightened. I just needed a break. I crossed my arms. Did Chase need a break too? Or is he just renting you until the next rich idiot walks by? That hit. She flinched. But then came the venom. The part one expected. You think you're some kind of victim, she snapped. You checked out years ago, Tom. You didn't listen. You didn't ask about my needs. You let yourself go. You stopped seeing me. I stepped closer, voice low. No. I trusted you. I worked so you could chase your brand, take yoga retreats, post filtered versions of your life. I let you be free because I believed you'd still come home. She turned away like my words were wind. Cold and useless. I'll get my things tomorrow, she muttered. You'll get them now. Or I'll have them on the curb by morning. Jessica looked at me, something dark behind her eyes, but she knew I wasn't bluffing. She walked inside, collected a few bags she left behind in her rush to Italy, and made a show of slamming the door behind her. As I watched her drive off, a part of me wanted to scream. Another part wanted to collapse. But I didn't. Instead, I walked to the garage, pulled out the box I hadn't touched in years, old journals, old letters, a photo album labeled Tom and Jess. I lit a fire in the backyard pit, and one by one, fed the pages in. I watched the corners curl, the colors fade. Our wedding photo was the last to go. Her smile was frozen in time, long before betrayal sunk its claws into her. My phone buzzed again. This time from Rachel. "You went too far. She's devastated. You should be ashamed." I stared at the message, then typed my reply. "Tell Chase he can have her. Just make sure she doesn't forget to bring her lies." And I blocked the number. That night, I slept for 3 hours. Woke up gasping. Not from nightmares, but from the weight of grief sitting on my chest like a demon. She didn't just cheat. She rewrote our story like I was nothing more than a side note. But I wasn't done, because what came next would make her regret ever thinking I was weak. The next morning, I changed every lock on the house. Front door, garage, even the damn mailbox. I wanted no trace of her left. I called a locksmith and told him, "Make it so even God needs a key to get in." He laughed. I didn't. By 10 a.m., I was holding her wedding ring tucked away in the little dish she used for earrings, and I walked to the nearest pawn shop. Didn't say a word, just slid it across the counter. The guy looked at it, then back at me, asked if I was sure. I nodded. He handed me $400. That's what 18 years of promises were worth. For $100 and a fake smile. By noon, I'd emptied our shared bank accounts. My name was still on everything. I transferred half to a private savings account and left her the other half with a note. "Buy yourself another life. This one's over." Then I did the one thing she probably didn't expect. I reached out to a lawyer. I didn't want revenge in court. I wanted clean. Fast. Final. The lawyer's name was Brad Holloway. Ex-Marine, sharp eyes, no patience for bull. When I told him about the trip, the video, the messages, he leaned back in his chair, shook his head, and said, "You've got a stronger case than Steele." "Good," I said, "because I'm done playing nice." Brad started drawing up divorce papers that day. I gave him everything: texts, emails, even screenshots of her and Chase playing house in Milan. He asked if I wanted to go after spousal support. I laughed. If she wants money, she can ask Chase. I'm keeping my peace. That night, she called again. This time, she didn't even try to apologize. "You're blowing this way out of proportion, Tom," she snapped over the line. "It was just a trip. You're acting like I murdered someone." "You murdered us," I said. "And now I'm just burying the body." Click. No more calls after that. But the silence didn't bring peace. It brought something worse: flashbacks. Flashbacks to our first date. To her laugh when she spilled coffee on my lap. To the time I stayed up 3 nights in a row when her mom was in the hospital, just so she didn't have to be alone. To our wedding, her vows: "No matter where life takes us, I'll never walk alone." What a joke. She didn't just walk away, she sprinted. And she took everyone with her. Even my parents. I hadn't spoken to them since the video. They didn't call. Didn't text. I guess choosing Jess was easier than facing their son's pain. So I sent them an email. Simple. Short. "Thanks for the surprise. Don't bother coming back." And I blocked them too. I'd lost everything except one thing: my pride. And I was going to rebuild with that if it killed me. The next week was war. Silent, Cold War. She tried to access the house. I had her removed. She filed a complaint. I countered with proof of infidelity. She sent Rachel to mediate. I laughed in Rachel's face and closed the door. Then something happened. Out of nowhere, Chase called me. I picked up. Just once. His voice was smooth. Polished. The kind of voice that sounded like it wore expensive cologne. "Tom, man to man, I just wanted to say." "Don't." I cut him off. "You don't get to play decent now." "I didn't mean to hurt anyone." "Then why did you?" Silence. Then he said something that sent ice down my spine. "She told me you knew. That you were okay with it." I froze. "What?" "She said you had an arrangement. That the passion was gone, and you were fine with her seeing someone on the side." I couldn't even speak. My hands were shaking. My vision blurred with rage. She told him that? I hung up without a word. My phone hit the wall 5 seconds later. She'd rewritten the entire story. Turned herself into some bored, oppressed wife and me into a spineless cuckold. She was covering her tracks by burying me in lies. That night, I drank too much. I stared at the wall for hours. I thought about burning the whole damn house down and starting from ashes. But I didn't. Because she wanted me broken. And I was just getting started. 3 days passed. No calls. No messages. No drama. Which, coming from Jessica, meant a storm was brewing. I started waking up at 5 a.m. every morning, hitting the gym before the sun even broke the sky. Every rep, every drop of sweat felt like a hammer slamming into the version of me she tried to destroy. The Tom she called dull, predictable, weak. That Tom was dead. But the pain wasn't. It showed up in weird places. I'd reach for a coffee mug and remember how she used to sneak cinnamon into mine, saying, "You always drink like an old man." I'd turn the key in the front door and expect to hear her humming in the kitchen. I'd check my phone out of habit, expecting a message that said, "Miss you. Come home soon." But now, the only humming came from the fridge, and the only messages were from banks and lawyers. Then it happened. She showed up again. Not at the door this time, but at my job. I was in the middle of reviewing a pitch when I looked up and saw her in the lobby through the glass. Security didn't stop her. She still had that manipulative charm, the smile that made people forget to think. I walked out, jaw tight. "What the hell are you doing here?" She gave me this fake innocent look and said, "Can we talk in private?" "No." "Tom, please." I said no. People were starting to stare. I could feel my team's eyes burning through the back of my skull. She started, then glanced around and leaned in, whispering like we were still a couple, like she still had access to me. "I need your help." I blinked. "My help? You've lost your mind." "It's Chase," she hissed. "He's not who I thought he was." I crossed my arms. "What? Your prince turned out to be a fraud?" Her eyes darted, anxious. "He's not just cheating, he's threatening me. He found out I was talking to a divorce lawyer. He said if I leave, he'll ruin me. Financially. Publicly." I stared at her, trying to decide whether she was acting or unraveling. Then she grabbed my arm. "Tom, please. You're the only one I trust." I laughed. Actually laughed in her face. "You don't trust me. You just burned every bridge, and now you're looking for one that didn't collapse." Tears welled up in her eyes. "I messed up." "No, Jess," I said coldly, pulling my arm away. "You built a whole new life and gave me a funeral invite." She swallowed hard. "Can I just stay with you for a few days? Until I figure out what to do?" I took a long breath, looked her in the eye, and said, "No." Her face cracked. She wasn't used to rejection. Not from me. Not from anyone. I turned around, walked back into the office, left her standing there in her designer coat and her fake panic. 2 hours later, I got a call from Brad. "Tom," he said, tone sharp. "You sitting down? Just tell me." She filed a counterclaim. Said you were abusive. Claimed emotional manipulation, financial control, and neglect. I felt my stomach drop. "You're kidding." "I wish." "She's trying to paint you as the villain. She wants alimony now. Claims she gave up her career for your toxic ego." I didn't respond. My jaw clenched so hard I thought my teeth would crack. "She's pushing for emergency support. Temporary possession of the house." "She doesn't live here." I barked. "I changed the locks." "She told the court you locked her out unjustly. That she was seeking safety." I nearly put my fist through the wall. "That lying." "I'm filing a rebuttal," Brad interrupted calmly. "Send me everything, those emails, the video, the messages with Chase. We'll bury her in truth." I hung up and walked outside. I needed air. I needed distance. But I couldn't escape the feeling building in my chest, that burning, that bitter twist that comes when someone you love turns into a predator. She wasn't just a cheater now. She was a threat. And the war had officially begun. The court date was set. 2 weeks from now, I'd be sitting across from the woman I married, only now she'd be wearing a lawyer's armor, swinging lies like daggers, trying to strip me of everything I'd built. I spent those 2 weeks preparing for battle. Not just with Brad, with myself. Because part of me still asked why. Not what she did. I knew that now. But why she needed to destroy me after she'd already betrayed me. Why wasn't leaving enough? Brad told me, some people can't let go unless they convince themselves you deserved it. And if they have to rewrite history to sleep at night, they'll burn the truth to the ground. Jessica wasn't just trying to leave. She wanted to erase me. I gathered everything. Emails, texts, the video, even a screenshot from Chase's stupid dating app profile that matched the shirt he wore in Italy. It painted a clear picture. While she claimed abuse and neglect, she was traveling Europe on my dime and bragging to her lover about how easy it was to handle old Tom. I didn't eat much. Didn't sleep either. Just kept grinding. Focused. Cold. Then the next surprise came. Tanya texted me. "Check your DMs. Thought you'd want to see this." I opened Instagram. There it was. A photo of Jessica. In a club. In LA. Not hiding. Not laying low. wrapped around Chase's neck again, except this time she was in a skin-tight red dress, holding a champagne bottle like a trophy. The caption? Winning looks good on us. Tagged, #PowerCouple, #no regrets. No regrets. She was preparing a courtroom speech about trauma and victimhood, while partying in plain sight like the spoiled brat she really was. I sent the screenshot to Brad. His reply came fast. Judge is going to love this. 2 nights before court, she showed up again. This time, I didn't answer the door. I watched through the peephole as she pounded her fist against the wood, yelling, "Tom, I know you're in there. Stop hiding like a coward." I didn't move. You think you're going to win? You think that little lawyer of yours is going to save you? You're nothing without me. The words were wild, almost frantic. She sounded unhinged. Then silence. 5 minutes later, a text. You made me into this. You broke me first. Blocked. That was the last straw. The next morning, I stood in front of the mirror, suit sharp, eyes darker than I remembered ever seeing them. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't scared. I was done. When we entered the courtroom, she walked in like a pageant queen. High heels, crocodile tears, that soft whimper in her voice like she practiced it in front of the mirror for days. Her lawyer started with his performance. Jessica Langston, she was using his last name now, has endured years of quiet suffering, emotional isolation, neglect so deep it drove her into the arms of another man. I could barely keep from laughing. Brad stood up, calm and surgical. He laid out the timeline, the trip, the video, the text messages, the Chase phone call, the screenshots from Instagram. Then he dropped the bomb, a recorded voicemail I didn't know he had. Jessica, yelling at my door, screaming about how I'd never win, how I made her this way, cursing. The courtroom was quiet after that. Her lawyer looked pale. The judge glanced at Jessica like he was seeing through her makeup and crocodile show. "Mrs. Langston," he said coldly, "you expect this court to believe you feared your husband, yet you appeared uninvited at his residence 3 times, contacted him over 80 times in 1 week, and posted celebratory photos with your alleged abuser's replacement?" She opened her mouth, but no words came out. My lawyer whispered to me, "We just won." By the time court adjourned, I had the house. I had my accounts. I had a clean divorce on the table with no alimony, no assets lost. She'd get what she came with and nothing more. As she passed me on the way out, she looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You'll regret this. One day, when no one loves you." I smiled. Calm. Steady. "I'd rather be alone than ever loved by you again." She left in silence. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt free. The morning after court, I woke up to silence. Not the cold, empty kind I'd been drowning in for weeks, but peaceful silence. The kind that settles into your bones like the first deep breath after holding it underwater too long. I stood at the window with a mug of coffee, black, no cinnamon this time, and watched the sun break across the neighborhood. Kids rode bikes. Sprinklers came on. Life was moving, indifferent to everything I'd just been through. And maybe that's what I needed. To remember that the world doesn't stop spinning just because someone rips your heart out. My phone buzzed. A single notification, "Your divorce has been finalized." I stared at it for a long time, then deleted the entire thread. The photos, the videos, every file tied to Jessica. Gone. I didn't do it out of forgiveness. I did it because I refused to carry her weight any longer. Later that day, I boxed up the last few things she'd left behind, some old perfume bottles, a pair of heels, a journal she never finished, and dropped them off at a donation center. I didn't leave a note. I didn't care if she noticed. On the way home, I stopped at the park where we used to walk our dog. He passed years ago, but I sat on the same bench where we used to laugh about names for imaginary kids. For a second, I let myself remember the good. Not to miss her, but to bury it. That version of us? It's gone. And I'm okay with that. A week later, I started therapy. Not because I was broken, but because I needed to understand why I tolerated less than I deserved for so long. The therapist, an older guy named Dr. Markham, listened quietly while I unpacked years of slow disrespect that I'd labeled as normal marriage stuff. "You didn't lose her," he told me. "You lost the illusion she created." That hit hard. Because it was true. I didn't miss Jessica. I missed the version of her that only existed in my head. The woman who loved me, who had my back, who dreamed the same dreams. That woman never really existed. 1 month after the final hearing, I posted one last photo on Instagram. Me. On a hiking trail at sunrise. Sweat-soaked, smiling, eyes clear. The caption read, "Surprise. I survived. No drama. No follow-up. Just that. The DMs rolled in old friends, coworkers, even strangers. Some said they were proud. Some told me their own horror stories. One message stood out. From a woman I hadn't seen in years. I saw what happened. And I just want you to know, you're not dull. You're the strongest damn man I know. I smiled. Not because I was ready to move on with someone else, but because I finally remembered who I was before she tried to rewrite me. I was Tom Parker. I was loyal. I was kind. I was patient. And now, I was free. So if you're reading this, some guy out there wondering if staying quiet will save your marriage, if tolerating her mood swings or emotional distance is just part of the deal, if you're starting to forget who you were before you met her, hear me now. You don't have to bleed to prove you loved her. You don't have to stay just because you started. And if she ever looks you in the eye and tells you you're not enough, walk away. Because real love doesn't make you feel small. It builds you. And you, my friend, you deserve to be built up, not broken down. The end. You're taking this too far. It's just a college graduation, my wife said, rolling her eyes like I was some drama queen in a soap opera. Yeah, Dad, seriously. Chill out. My son, Tyler, added, not even looking up from his phone. Those two sentences didn't just cut, they shredded. My son's college graduation. My son, the kid I coached through Little League, sat with through chickenpox, stayed up all night helping with science fairs. The kid I raised while his mother spent weekends visiting her sister, which, looking back now, was probably code for something far filthier. And now I wasn't even invited to watch him walk across a damn stage. I didn't say anything. Not to them. I just turned and walked upstairs, locked the door, and booked myself a solo trip to Montana. Fly fishing, whiskey, silence. Far away from the house that never felt like home anymore. I told them nothing. Just packed my bags and left. A few days later, I turned on my phone after hiking through Glacier National Park. 150 missed calls. That's not an exaggeration. My voicemail was filled to the brim. Messages from my brother, from neighbors, from my wife's yoga friends. And then a few from my mother-in-law, the kind of woman who thought her daughter walked on water and believed every man should be grateful just to breathe in her air. Something had happened. I checked the news first. Nothing. Then I opened Facebook. And there it was. A tagged photo at the graduation ceremony. My wife, Heather, red dress, standing front and center, clutching my son like he was a trophy. But that wasn't what made my blood run cold. It was the man standing behind her. Brady, a younger man, maybe late 30s. Chiseled jawline, the kind of beard that looks expensive, arms around Heather's waist like he belonged there. One of the tags read, "Congrats, Tyler. So proud of you. Heather and Brady." Heather and Brady? Excuse me? Heather and Brady? I stared at that photo like it would change. Like the pixels would rearrange themselves into something more logical. But they didn't. And I felt something inside me split. Not like a clean break. No, this was jagged. Ugly. She brought him. To our son's graduation. She didn't just leave me out. She replaced me. I scrolled further. There were more pictures. Them having brunch. Her kissing him on the cheek. One with Tyler laughing with both of them like they were some happy, blended family sitcom. This wasn't an accident. This was a message. And I got it loud and clear. I slammed my phone face down on the wooden lodge table. The crack of the glass screen not nearly satisfying enough. My hands were shaking. Not from rage. Not yet. But from confusion. The kind of confusion that crawls under your skin and whispers, "You missed something. You've been missing something for a long, long time." That night, I couldn't sleep. My brain replayed the last 6 months in fast forward and reverse. Her work trips. Her sudden obsession with new lingerie she never wore for me. The gym memberships. The late-night texts she said were from Beth. But this wasn't about lingerie or gym sessions. This was a betrayal so deep, it felt surgical. She didn't just cheat on me. She deleted me from the story. Erased me from my own son's life like I was a footnote she couldn't wait to skip past. And Tyler, my own blood, had let it happen. I stared at the ceiling fans spinning overhead, each rotation slicing my sanity thinner. Something inside me was shifting. Something permanent. I had been the nice guy, the provider, the husband who forgave and forgave and forgave. But this was different. This was war. And it wasn't going to be quiet. I didn't fly home right away. I stayed in Montana another night, just to let the rage marinate. I needed to feel it, Let it burn through the confusion and sadness until all that remained was clarity. And when it did, something terrifying happened. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I smiled. Because I realized what I had been to them. A placeholder. The man who paid the bills, fixed the leaky faucet, drove Tyler to school, and took out the trash. Reliable. Predictable. Replaceable. On the flight back, I drafted a message in my head. The one I'd send Heather before walking through that door. But when I landed and got in my car, something pulled at me. A hunch. So instead of driving home, I went to her office. She'd told me she worked late every Thursday, prepping for meetings, catching up on emails. It was Thursday, and sure enough, her car was in the lot. Lights were on in her office. But she wasn't alone. I parked 2 spaces away and watched. Brady again, wearing one of those smug smiles like he just won something he didn't deserve. They were sitting on the edge of her desk, laughing. She touched his arm. Then her hand slid lower, and he leaned in. I don't know what snapped harder, my last ounce of restraint, or the car door when I slammed it shut. I walked in through the front entrance. The receptionist was gone. It was after hours. Perfect. Heather's office door was open. They didn't see me until I was in the doorway. Her mouth dropped open. Brady stood up fast, adjusting his belt like a schoolboy caught red-handed. Jason, she stammered, voice thin, fake concern all over her face like bad makeup. What are you doing here? I looked her dead in the eye. I figured if I wasn't invited to my son's graduation, maybe I could at least attend your after-party. Brady tried to speak, but I held up a finger. Don't. Just don't. Heather stood, her heels clicking against the tile, trying to regain control of the room like she always did. This isn't what it looks like, she said. I laughed. Actually laughed. That's the best you've got? Heather, I've seen the photos. The brunch. The kissing. You invited him to our son's graduation and didn't even tell me you were dating someone. She crossed her arms. You're being dramatic. No, I'm being a father. You remember what that is. Or were you too busy climbing on your intern to notice? Brady took a step forward. I'm not her intern. I turned to him. I don't care if you're the Pope. Walk away. This conversation's not for you. To my surprise, he did. Grabbed his coat and left without another word. Heather sighed, like I was the burden here. Jason, look, I was going to tell you. It just had happened. And you've been so checked out lately. There it was. The flip. Suddenly, it was my fault. I'd been too distant, too boring, too whatever excuse she pulled out of her manipulative little playbook. So let me get this straight, I said, stepping closer. You screw around behind my back, turn my son against me, erase me from a major moment in his life, and your defense is you've been distant. She didn't answer, just stared at me, lips tight, eyes calculating. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. I want a divorce, I said. Her eyebrows raised. Oh, so now you're finally taking action? Good for you. That did it. Not the betrayal, not the lies, but that smug, heartless response. The sheer disrespect. I nodded once, turned, and walked out. I could hear her heels chasing me down the hallway. Jason, don't walk away like this. But I didn't stop, because I wasn't walking away from her. I was walking back to myself. I didn't go home that night. I drove around the city until the streetlights blurred and the skyline disappeared into fog. Every memory I had of our marriage kept playing in my head like a sick montage. Our wedding day, Tyler's birth, her whispering, I love you, while scrolling through her phone at night. All of it suddenly felt like a well-rehearsed performance. I ended up at a 24-hour diner on the outskirts of town. Empty booths, bad coffee, silence, exactly what I needed. I sat there until sunrise, thinking about everything and nothing. When I finally turned my phone back on, Tyler had texted, Hey, we should talk. Talk. Now. After all this. I didn't respond. Instead, I drove home just after 6 a.m., hoping she wouldn't be there. But her car was parked out front. Of course. She wanted to get ahead of the story, shape it her way before I could say my version. Typical Heather. I walked in, and there she was, sitting on the couch like she hadn't just destroyed everything. You ignored Tyler, she said flatly. Yeah, I replied. I've been busy watching the slow-motion collapse of my entire life. She scoffed. Don't be dramatic. I stepped forward. You know what the saddest part is, Heather? It's not that you cheated. Not even that you paraded that guy around like some trophy. It's that you didn't even think I deserved the truth. You didn't respect me enough to lie with effort. I never meant to hurt you. I stared at her like she was speaking a foreign language. You didn't mean to hurt me, Heather? I pointed to the hallway. Then what was the point of telling Tyler not to invite me? What was the point of standing there next to another man, smiling for photos at my son's graduation, while I sat alone in the mountains wondering what I did wrong? She looked down, silent. That's what I thought. Then came the turn. She sat up straighter, eyes flashing. You always act like the victim, Jason. But let's be real. You stopped trying years ago. You got boring. Predictable. I needed someone who made me feel alive again. There it was. The justification. I sacrificed everything for this family, I said, voice tight. I worked 60-hour weeks so you could find yourself in Pilates and wine tastings. I put my dreams on hold so Tyler could have both his parents. And now I'm boring. You lost your spark. No, I gave it to you. And you burned it. She stood, trying to regain control. You're making this harder than it has to be. I hope he was worth it, I said. She crossed her arms. He listens to me. He appreciates me. Did you ever appreciate me? No answer. I walked upstairs and began pulling out suitcases, tossing clothes into them without folding. There was no plan, just motion. I needed out. I needed space. And as I moved through the bedroom, I noticed something under the bed, a small box I hadn't seen in years. Curious, I pulled it out. Inside were letters. Dozens of them. Love letters. Not to me. His name was on every envelope. Brady. These weren't new. Some dated back over a year. Notes about hotel rooms. Beach weekends. I wish Jason wasn't home tonight, written in her cursive. The lies didn't start recently. They'd been marinating for a long, long time. I dropped the box on the bed and walked downstairs. She was standing in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone. I tossed the box onto the table. She froze. Oh, she whispered. That's all you've got? Oh, she didn't answer. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't sorry. Not truly. She was sorry she got caught. Sorry her version of the story was slipping through her fingers. I'm not just leaving, I said. I'm taking back everything you took from me. My dignity. My time. My peace. And you can tell Brady to keep you company when the lawyers start calling. I walked out, slammed the door behind me, and for the first time in months, the air felt clear. Cold, but clean. I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't hurt, but because crying implies something's broken. And I wasn't broken. I was waking up. The next few days were a blur of paperwork, cold calls, and hotel room coffee. I stayed at a mid-tier suite near downtown. Not glamorous, but it had a lock she couldn't walk through and silence she couldn't poison. My phone never stopped buzzing. Tyler texted, called, left voicemails. Heather too, but hers turned aggressive real quick. The kind of messages where she flipped between pretending to care and accusing me of ruining her life. But I didn't respond. Not once. I needed time, space, a place to think. And that's when it hit me. I had spent the last decade reacting to everything. Her moods, her needs, her lies. I had molded myself into the kind of man who keeps the family together, even when the family is just a ticking bomb with a smiling face. But now I was done reacting. It was time to act. I met with a lawyer, a quiet guy named Alan with tired eyes and zero patience for BS. He looked through the letters I found, skimmed my notes, and said flatly, we can work with this. I asked about custody, about what rights I still had with Tyler being in college. He gave me the real talk. At his age, Tyler could choose. But the evidence might help with division of assets. The house, the cars, the joint accounts. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed with a beer in my hand, watching some late-night news rerun on mute, thinking about Tyler. I knew he wasn't the villain here. He was young, impressionable. And Heather, she knew how to manipulate. She'd been practicing for years. Still, the sting cut deep. He called again. This time, I picked up. Dad. Yeah. Look, I didn't know everything, okay? She told me you were the one pulling away, that you didn't want to come. I'm your father, Tyler. And I wanted to be there. More than anything. He was quiet. I saw the photos, I added. You looked happy. I wasn't, he whispered. Not really. I didn't want to fight with her. She made it sound like you'd moved on, that you didn't care anymore. I sighed, the weight in my chest tightening. You should have asked me. I know, he said. I messed up, but I didn't know about Brady. Not until the dinner after graduation. She introduced him like it was nothing, like you'd been gone for years. There it was. Her real power, rewriting history until even her son couldn't recognize the truth. I'm sorry, Dad, he said again. I messed up. No, I said. She did. You just believed her. We sat in silence for a moment, and then I asked the one question I hadn't dared ask until now. Did you see them together? Yeah. Did it look serious? Another pause. She told me they were in love. I didn't answer. I couldn't. After we hung up, I stared at the ceiling again. Same ceiling, different room. But this time, no ceiling fan spinning overhead. Just stillness. Heather had moved on. With no shame. No pause. She'd made a new life and just assumed I'd be too broken or too polite to do anything about it. But she underestimated the man I used to be. The man I still was. I started compiling every piece of evidence I had. The letters, the timestamps, the photos, the receipts for hotel stays under her name during times she said she was working late. It wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. One morning, just before dawn, I drove back to the house. I didn't go in, didn't want to see her face, or smell her perfume, or hear her pretend voice. I just parked across the street and watched the lights turn on, one by one. She came out wearing his hoodie, hair wet, smiling. He followed a few minutes later. And that's when the final piece fell into place. She was already living with him. In my house. In my life. She had replaced me entirely. But what she didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that I'd already met with Alan again. I had already filed. I had already frozen the accounts. The hammer was coming down. And this time, I was the one swinging it. I waited for the scream. Not a literal one, but that figurative, panicked scream people let out when their fantasy crumbles. When the money stops flowing. When the fake security evaporates. When the man they thought they could walk all over suddenly pulls the rug from under their designer heels. It came 3 days later. Heather called. 10 times. Then a text. Did you empty our accounts? I smiled. No reply. Then another. You're being childish. Tyler needs tuition covered. Tyler's tuition was covered by a separate fund I'd always managed privately. But she didn't know that. She assumed I'd be too blinded by anger to think clearly. Classic Heather. Always playing checkers in a chess game. Then came the cherry on top. A call from Brady. Block number, but that voice? Smug, confident, young, unmistakably him. Listen, man, he started, like we were two college buddies having a misunderstanding over a poker game. This doesn't need to be nasty. Heather's upset. We didn't mean for things to overlap. Overlap. That word. I almost laughed. You screwed my wife for a year and erased me from my son's life, I said. Overlap is what happens when you double book a haircut. What you did was war. Silence. I just want to make sure Tyler isn't caught in the middle, he said. Brady, I said calmly. Tyler is the middle. You walked into a family and didn't even blink. He sighed. Look, I'm not trying to be the bad guy here. You don't have to try. You're a natural. I hung up. Later that evening, my lawyer texted me. The official papers were served. She was at home when they arrived. He was there too, apparently. I imagined her flipping out, mascara running, throwing a wine glass across the room like some second-rate soap villain. Brady trying to play damage control while realizing the house he moved into was built on a graveyard of lies. And I was at peace. For the first time in years. That night, I pulled out an old hard drive. Photos. Videos. Memories I'd buried under routine. There was one clip, Tyler's 5th birthday. I was dressed as a magician. Silly hat, fake wand, awkward mustache. Heather was recording. You could hear her laughing in the background. At me, not with me. Even then, she was distant. The signs were there. I just didn't want to see them. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't explode. It drips. Slowly. Quietly. A misplaced phone. A late return. A change in perfume. And then one day you realize the woman you loved isn't yours anymore. Maybe she never really was. 2 days after the papers hit, Tyler showed up at my hotel. No warning. Just knocked on the door, eyes heavy like he hadn't slept in days. I opened it, heart racing. Hey, he said. I let him in. We didn't say much at first. Just sat. Then he broke. She's out of her mind. I raised an eyebrow. She tried to throw your stuff out. Said she was redecorating the energy. Brady's living there full-time now. Like it's his. I know. I'm sorry, Dad. That time, I believed him. He looked older somehow. Guilt will do that. Strip the arrogance off a man and leave the bones behind. You're still my son, I said. But if you want to keep him in your life, you'll have to figure out how to do that without losing me. He nodded, quietly. Then, she told me you were controlling. That you didn't want her to grow. She needed an excuse. And you were an easy mirror. We sat in that room until nightfall. When he left, he hugged me. I didn't realize how much I needed that. The next morning, I put on a clean shirt, checked out of the hotel, and drove past the house one last time. I didn't stop, didn't slow down, just looked once in the rearview mirror. She was on the porch, phone in hand, pacing. Desperate, furious. Everything I used to fear now looked pathetic. And just like that, I was free. The silence after all the chaos was almost unsettling. For the first time in years, there were no sudden accusations, no cold shoulders, no tension thick enough to choke on. Just me, a modest apartment with creaky floors, and the sound of my own thoughts. And damn, did they get loud. I found myself reaching for routines just to stay grounded. Wake up, coffee, walk, read, repeat. It felt strange, like learning how to live again without constantly looking over my shoulder or decoding passive-aggressive texts from Heather. Every once in a while, a message would slip through. She started using different numbers. Sometimes Tyler's. Once, even her mother's. Always the same pattern. Angry, then guilty, then seductive. Like she thought she still had that kind of pull over me. Let's talk. I miss you. I made a mistake. That last one almost got me. Almost. But the thing about betrayal, once it rips you open, you see everything more clearly. Every manipulation, every emotional landmine she used to keep me quiet. The guilt tripping, the gaslighting, the way she'd make me feel like I was the one screwing things up even while she was out playing house with another man. And Brady? He was cracking under the pressure. Word had already started spreading. Apparently, Heather was just as loyal to him as she'd been to me. My buddy from work sent me a screenshot. Her name popped up on some private Facebook group for women in open emotional exploration retreats. Basically, code for rich housewives sleeping with yoga instructors and calling it enlightenment. I almost pitied the guy. Almost. But karma doesn't need cheerleaders. It just needs time. I focused on myself. Therapy. Journaling. Things I'd laughed at before. But when you've been used like a doormat for years, you need more than a fresh start. You need to clean the damn floor. One day, I walked into a gym. Not to impress anyone. Not to glow up for revenge. Just for me. And that's where I met her. Anna. She wasn't flashy. No fake smiles. No rehearsed charm. She worked the front desk at the gym and gave me the kind of look that said, "You've been through some SHD, huh?" Asterisk. She didn't try to fix me. She listened. We started talking over smoothies. Then walks. Then late-night drives that felt like the opposite of everything Heather ever was. There was one night I told her everything. The whole story. Graduation. The betrayal. The letters under the bed. The look in my son's eyes when he realized he'd chosen the wrong side. And Anna didn't flinch. Didn't try to make it about her. She just placed her hand over mine and said, "Sounds like you survived hell and still remembered how to be decent." That line stuck with me. Because yeah, I did survive. I didn't destroy Heather. I didn't take revenge on Brady. I didn't burn the house down. But I did reclaim my dignity. My name. My truth. A few weeks later, the divorce was finalized. Clean. Swift. Heather didn't contest much once her lawyers saw the stack of evidence I had. She didn't even show up in court. Sent a representative instead. Classic. I walked out of that courthouse with papers in my hand and a feeling I couldn't describe. It wasn't joy. Not quite relief either. It was peace. I had buried the version of me that kept begging for crumbs of respect. And now, I was walking away with the whole damn bakery. Tyler started visiting more. Slowly. Carefully. He'd come over on Sundays, help me grill, ask for advice again. I didn't rush it. I let him come back on his own terms. One night, we sat on the balcony watching the cars crawl below. He turned to me and said, "I used to think Mom was the strong one." I didn't say anything. He shook his head. But now I see it. She was loud. You were solid. That meant more than he probably knew. And Heather? She kept spiraling. Dating. Dropping guys. Posting filtered selfies with captions like, "Healing is messy, but beautiful." Let her have that story. I had mine. A few months later, Heather showed up unannounced. I was on my way out, keys in hand, when I opened the door and there she stood, arms crossed, sunglasses too big for her face, fake tears barely hidden behind designer shades. "Jason," she said, like my name had suddenly become a lifeline. I leaned against the doorframe. "You lost." She took the glasses off. "We need to talk." I looked at my watch. "You've got 3 minutes." Her mouth twitched, a mix of anger and desperation. "Brady's gone. He said he wasn't ready to be a stepdad, said I had too much baggage. I stayed silent, watching, letting her hear how hollow her words sounded in the air. He wasn't who I thought he was. No, Heather, I said, calm and sharp. He was exactly who you thought he was. You just didn't think he'd do to you what you did to me. She looked down. For the first time, she didn't try to spin it. Didn't try to guilt me or twist my words. She looked tired, worn out, alone. And honestly, I didn't feel sorry. I made a mistake, she whispered. I destroyed something real. I tilted my head. You didn't just destroy it. You set it on fire, danced in the ashes, and took selfies with the wreckage. She flinched. Jason, I want to fix things. We can start over. For Tyler. For us. There it was, the us card. Pulled too late from a deck she'd rigged years ago. I stepped forward, close enough so she could feel just how far away she really was. There is no us, I said. You didn't just break trust, you buried it. And I already grieved the woman I thought you were. She blinked rapidly, as if that might undo time. I gave a faint smile. But thank you. She furrowed her brows. For what? For teaching me exactly what I don't want in a partner ever again. She didn't respond. Just stood there, arms limp, like she was waiting for a second chance to fall out of the sky. I closed the door. Slowly. No slam. No drama. Just final. After that, things got quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't ache anymore. My apartment started to feel like a home. Tyler kept visiting. We fixed things, not with long talks, but with time and presence. One night, he brought over old photos, the kind Heather probably thought I'd burned. We laughed at my terrible mustache from 2006, at his bowl cut, at the camping trip where we almost got eaten alive by mosquitoes. And then, out of nowhere, he said, I'm proud of you, Dad. I looked up. Yeah. You handled it with class. I don't know if I could have. I chuckled. There were moments I almost didn't. Still, he said, you didn't let it make you bitter. That's rare. And he was right. Heather tried to poison my peace, steal my worth, rewrite my role in my own damn story. But I came out clean. Not untouched. No, the scars were real, but healed. I started dating again. Carefully. Slowly. No rushing. No masks. Just real. And when I looked in the mirror now, I didn't see the man she left behind. I saw the man I rediscovered. And that man, he's not just surviving anymore. He's living. It was on a Saturday morning, nearly a year to the day after the graduation debacle, when I ran into Heather again. Not by choice. Not at some coffee shop or bar, but at Tyler's small family birthday gathering. He had asked me privately if it was okay, said he just wanted both parents there, no drama. I agreed. Not for her. For him. When I arrived, I kept it simple. A clean shirt, jeans, bottle of bourbon in a gift bag, and zero expectations. Tyler greeted me at the door with a smile that told me everything I needed to know. We were good now. Solid again. The wound had scarred over, but we'd survived it. Heather was already inside. She didn't say anything when I walked in. Just gave a little nod, like we were distant co-workers attending a meeting we couldn't get out of. She looked different. Not older, but tired in a way makeup can't hide. Worn out from trying to outrun the consequences of her own choices. Her smile didn't have that sharp edge anymore. It was softer now, almost like she'd finally started seeing the wreckage behind her. We barely interacted. Just polite nods, small smiles for Tyler's sake. But at one point, she came up beside me while I was pouring a drink and said quietly, I meant it, you know. I really did love you. I didn't look at her. Just swirled the bourbon in the glass and said, then you should have protected it. She didn't argue, didn't defend, didn't cry, just stood there for a second, then walked away. That was the last real conversation we ever had. In the months that followed, she faded out of relevance. Brady? Long gone. She moved into a smaller condo and took a job outside the city. Tyler said she was doing okay, but he didn't talk about her much anymore. And I didn't ask. That chapter was closed. As for me, I kept rebuilding. Not the same life. A better one. I got promoted at work. Bought a place of my own. A modest house on the edge of town with a porch that caught every sunset like it owed me something. I planted a garden. Cooked real meals. Started sleeping like a man who no longer had to sleep with one eye open. Anna was still around. Patient. Strong. Not trying to fill a void. Just adding light to places that had gone dim. She once asked me if I'd ever forgive Heather. I told her the truth. I don't need to. Forgiveness isn't always about the other person. Sometimes it's about cutting the rope they tied around your throat, walking away with breath in your lungs and no apology in your pocket. I forgave myself for staying too long, for believing too hard, for losing myself just to keep someone else comfortable. Now, I'm free. I don't check her social media. I don't stalk Brady's profile. I don't scroll through old texts looking for closure. I live. And if you're reading this, if you've ever felt that weight on your chest, that suspicion in your gut, that cold silence where love used to live, listen carefully. It's not your fault. You're not crazy. And you don't have to burn with them to prove your worth. Just walk away. Then rebuild. And when you do, don't look back, unless it's to laugh at how far you've come. 1 year and 7 months after I walked out that front door with nothing but a suitcase and shattered trust, I stood in my own kitchen, barefoot, coffee in hand, sunlight pouring in through the windows, and I smiled without even realizing it. Not a forced smile. Not one meant to cover up bruises no one could see. A real one. The kind that just happens when peace isn't something you fight for anymore. It just exists. I had come a long way. Through betrayal. Through the lies. Through the gut punch realization that the woman I gave everything to had been erasing me for years. Through watching my own son be weaponized against me. Through the anger, the pain, the silence. I walked through all of it. And I didn't just survive. I built something better. Tyler now called me at least once a week. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to. He told me he respected how I handled it. That he understood things better now. That meant more than I could ever tell him. Not just because it restored our relationship, but because it proved I hadn't failed at being a father. And Anna? She never tried to fix me. She just stood next to me while I did the fixing myself. That's the thing about real love. It doesn't rescue you. It reminds you you were never broken. We didn't rush anything. No fairy tale ending. No dramatic proposals under fireworks. Just two people who'd been through enough to know what love wasn't, finally learning what it could be. The last time I heard from Heather was a random email. A long, rambling thing. Part apology, part justification, part plea for closure. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry, but because some doors are better left closed. She made her choices. And I made mine. People always talk about heartbreak like it's this unbearable thing. And it is, for a while. But they rarely talk about what comes after, when the fog lifts and you see yourself clearly again. When the voice in your head changes from what did I do wrong to what do I want next? And what I wanted was peace, loyalty, quiet mornings, loud laughter, the kind of love that doesn't need to be posted, proven, or constantly fixed. So, if you're in the middle of it right now, if you're staring at phone records, rereading cold texts, watching someone you love turn into a stranger, hear this from someone who's been exactly where you are. It hurts now, but it won't forever. One day, you'll wake up and it won't be the first thing on your mind. One day, her name won't sting anymore. One day, the life you lost will feel like a small price to pay for the one you rebuilt. And when that day comes, you'll know. You didn't just move on. You rose.
I should have never turned on the news that night. The headline punched me in the gut before I could even blink. Lamborghini crashes on I-95. Female passenger in critical condition. The screen cut to flashing lights, crumpled metal, and a wrecked yellow sports car. Then, they showed her. Jessica. My wife. I shot up from the couch, the remote slipping from my hand. She had left the house 3 hours ago, telling me she was going to dinner with her sister. So why the hell was she in another man's car? The anchor's voice cut through the pounding in my skull. The driver, identified as 32-year-old Ryan Carter, was pronounced dead at the scene. Ryan Carter. That name slammed into me like a freight train. Jessica's gym friend. The one she swore was just helping her train. The one she laughed at me for even questioning. My stomach twisted. My fingers clenched into fists. I knew, right then, that my marriage was over. And Jessica? She had just lost everything. The hospital was colder than I expected. Or maybe it was just me. I stood at the front desk, gripping the counter so hard my knuckles went white. The nurse barely looked up. Sir, are you family? I forced the words out. I'm her husband. She hesitated, then nodded toward the hallway. She's stable. Room 407. Every step toward that room felt like dragging myself through cement. My mind was a war zone: rage, betrayal, disgust, and something else I didn't want to admit. The moment I pushed open the door, she looked up. Even bruised, bandaged, and hooked to and for, she still had the audacity to smirk. "Hey, babe," she rasped, voice weak but full of that same arrogance she always had. "Took you long enough." I didn't move. Didn't blink. "You were in his car." Jessica exhaled, like this was some minor inconvenience. "Mike, I don't have the energy for this right now." I stepped closer. "Ryan's dead." Something flickered in her expression. Shock? No. Not shock. Annoyance. She glanced away, suddenly very interested in the heart monitor. "That's unfortunate." I let out a hollow laugh. "Unfortunate?" Her jaw tightened. "I mean, it's sad, okay? But what do you want me to do, bring him back?" I clenched my teeth so hard it hurt. "How long, Jessica?" She didn't answer. I grabbed the chair beside her bed and sat down, staring at her. "How long?" She swallowed. Looked away. When she finally spoke, it was barely a whisper. 8 months. The room went silent. 8 months. I nodded slowly, letting the truth sink in. 8 months of lying to my face. 8 months of sneaking around. 8 months of making me feel like I was crazy for suspecting anything. I stood up, adjusting my jacket. Jessica frowned. "Where are you going?" I leaned down, just close enough so she could hear me clearly. "I'm going to make sure you lose everything." Then I walked out. And I didn't look back. She called me the next morning. I stared at the screen, her name glowing in the dim light of my apartment. I let it ring. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then I answered. Her voice was softer than usual, almost careful. "Mike, can we talk?" I exhaled through my nose, gripping the phone tighter. "Talk? Now you want to talk?" A pause. Then, a sigh. "I don't want to fight." I laughed, cold and sharp. "You don't want to fight? Jessica, you spent the last 8 months lying to my face while..." My throat tightened. I shook my head. "No. You don't get to decide when this conversation happens." She stayed quiet. I could hear the hospital machines beeping softly in the background. For the first time since the accident, it hit me, she was alone. Ryan was gone. And she knew damn well I was the only person left who might give a damn. She finally spoke. "Mike, I know I messed up." "Messed up?" My voice dropped, calm but lethal. "You destroyed our marriage. You treated me like an idiot. And you..." I swallowed the bitterness in my mouth. "You didn't even have the decency to be sorry." She inhaled sharply, and for a second, I thought maybe, there was guilt creeping in. Then she said, "Look, I know you're upset, but can we just..." I hung up. For the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. Then my phone buzzed again. A text this time. "Jessica, you're really just going to ignore me? After everything?" I shook my head. Unbelievable. Then another message popped up. "Jessica, Mike, please. I need you." I stared at the words, my stomach twisting. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't regretful. She was desperate. And that? That gave me an idea. If she thought she could manipulate me back into her life, she was in for a rude awakening. I wasn't just walking away. I was going to make sure she never recovered from what she did to me. She kept calling. Morning. Afternoon. Night. At first, I ignored it. Let the phone ring, let the texts pile up. But Jessica was persistent, she always was when things didn't go her way. Then, 3 days after the accident, she showed up at my apartment. I opened the door to find her standing there, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Her arm was still in a sling, bruises fading across her face. She tried to smile. "Hey." I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "You shouldn't be here." She exhaled, shifting her weight. "Mike, can we just talk? Please." I let the silence stretch. Let her feel the weight of it. Then I stepped aside. 5 minutes. She walked in carefully, glancing around like she expected everything to be different. Like she was stepping into a stranger's home. In a way, she was. I shut the door. "Say what you need to say." She turned to me, hands clasped together. "I know I hurt you." I said nothing. She swallowed. "But, we have history, Mike. We built a life together. You can't just throw that away." A bitter laugh escaped me. "You threw it away, Jessica. The second you climbed into his car." She flinched but didn't back down. "I wasn't thinking. I got caught up in something stupid, and I made mistakes." "Mistakes?" I took a slow step forward, letting my voice drop. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is leaving the stove on. What you did? That was a choice. Over and over again." Her jaw tightened. "Fine. I screwed up. But, Mike, do you really want to end things like this?" I stared at her, letting the silence settle between us. Then I pulled my phone from my pocket. Scrolled through the messages. Opened the one I'd been waiting for. And turned the screen toward her. She paled instantly. "Jessica Carter, court summons for divorce proceedings." Her voice wavered. "You already filed?" I finished for her. "Yeah. First thing yesterday morning." Her lips parted like she wanted to argue, but she hesitated. And for the first time in our entire marriage, I saw something real in her eyes. Panic. "I don't want a divorce," she whispered. I smiled. I did. And this time, I was finally the one walking away. Her face twisted in something between shock and desperation. "You don't mean that," she muttered, shaking her head. "You're just angry. You're hurt. We can fix this, Mike. We can go to therapy, work through it." I laughed. A short, bitter sound that barely felt like my own. "Therapy?" I repeated. "You think sitting in a room with some stranger is going to erase 8 months of lying? Of sneaking around behind my back? Of making me feel like I was the crazy one every time I asked where the hell you were?" Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I stepped closer, watching her carefully. "Tell me something, Jess. If Ryan was still alive, would you be here right now?" Silence. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed hard. "That's what I thought," I muttered. I walked past her, heading for the kitchen. I needed space, needed something to keep my hands busy before I said something that couldn't be unsaid. But Jessica wasn't done. "Mike, please," she called after me. "I know I handled things wrong. I know I hurt you. But we love each other." I scoffed. "You love me? That's funny. Because I don't think you even liked me these past 8 months." She rushed toward me, reaching for my arm, but I stepped back. "Don't," I warned. Her eyes glistened. "I made a mistake." "No," I said flatly. "A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. What you did? That was a choice. Over and over again. You chose him." Her face crumpled. "Mike, You chose him, I repeated, cutting her off. And now he's gone. And suddenly, you're back here, acting like I'm your backup plan. She flinched, and for the first time, I saw something in her expression that almost looked like fear. Good. I turned, grabbing a folder off the counter. You should go. A lawyer will be in touch. I held it out to her. She stared at it, unmoving. Mike, she whispered, don't do this. I tilted my head. You already did. Slowly, she reached out and took the folder with trembling fingers. She opened it, her eyes scanning the first page. Then her breath hitched. You're really doing this, she said, barely above a whisper. I exhaled, my grip tightening on the counter. I have to, I said. Because if I didn't, I'd never be free. Jessica's fingers clenched around the folder, her knuckles turning white. Her lips trembled, but I could see it, the calculation in her eyes. She wasn't crying because she was heartbroken. She was crying because she was losing. Her voice wavered. Mike, let's just think about this. We don't have to rush into. Rush? I let out a short, sharp laugh. Jessica, I've had 8 months to think about this. Hell, I had every long, lonely night while you were at the gym to think about this. She winced. I know I hurt you, but you didn't just hurt me, I cut in. You disrespected me. You treated me like a damn joke. Her breath hitched, and for a second, I thought she was going to fight. Thought she'd throw out some excuse, try to twist the blame back on me. But she didn't. She just looked at me. Like she was finally realizing, I was done. I watched the shift happen in real time. The fake remorse, the forced regret, it all drained from her face, leaving nothing but cold resentment. Her grip on the divorce papers tightened. Her voice dropped. You're really just gonna throw everything away? I narrowed my eyes. You already did. She inhaled sharply, nostrils flaring. Then, in a voice so venomous it almost made me laugh, she spat, You'll regret this. I leaned in, lowering my voice to a deadly calm. No, Jessica. You will. Her jaw clenched, and she turned on her heel, storming toward the door. She hesitated for half a second before stepping out, like she thought I might chase after her. I didn't. The door slammed shut behind her. And just like that, I was free. For the first time in months, I took a deep breath. No tension in my shoulders, no sick feeling in my gut. Jessica was out of my life. And I was never looking back. The silence in the apartment felt different now. It wasn't heavy. It wasn't suffocating. It was liberating. I stood there for a moment, just listening to nothing. No more fake apologies. No more manipulative tears. No more Jessica. I exhaled, grabbed my phone, and deleted her number. Then I opened our shared bank account. She hadn't seen it yet, but I'd already made my move. Last week, while she was too busy sneaking around, I transferred my paycheck into a new, separate account. Then I did the same with my savings. Jessica had thought she was smart. Thought she could play me, lie to my face for nearly a year, then walk away with half of everything. Not a chance in hell. I scrolled through the transactions. Remaining balance, $47.12. I smirked. The second she checked her banking app, she'd realize exactly what I'd done. I could almost picture it, her face twisting in fury, hands shaking as she refreshed the page over and over again, hoping the numbers would change. But they wouldn't. Because just like she had left me with nothing all those nights she snuck out to be with him, now, she had nothing. I locked my phone and tossed it onto the couch. I could have let the bitterness eat me alive. Could have spent months obsessing over why she did it, over what I could have done differently. But I didn't owe her my grief. I owed myself a fresh start. So I grabbed my keys, stepped outside, and took the first deep, clean breath of air I'd had in a long, long time. For the first time since this nightmare started, I felt free. The first message came an hour later. At first, I ignored it. Then another one. And another. My phone kept buzzing, the notifications piling up. I already knew what they were before I even looked. When I finally checked, I wasn't disappointed. "Jessica, what the hell did you do to our bank account?" I smirked. Then came the next one. "Jessica, you can't just take everything. I have bills. I have rent. You're being childish, Mike." I let that one sit unanswered. Then, as if she couldn't handle being ignored, another text popped up. "Jessica, fine. You wanna be a petty little aholy? Just wait. You'll regret this." Ah. There it was. The real her. Not the soft, apologetic Jessica from the hospital. Not the teary-eyed, regretful wife from my apartment. This was the woman who had cheated, lied, and manipulated me for almost a year. The woman who thought I'd be weak enough to cave. I didn't reply. Just tossed my phone onto the table and leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. Let her scream into the void. Let her realize, little by little, that she was no longer in control. That I was done playing the fool. That I had already moved on. She had lost. And now, she had to live with it. The next morning, I woke up to another wave of missed calls and texts. Jessica wasn't giving up easily. I scrolled through them, barely suppressing a laugh. "Jessica, you need to fix this now. Jessica, I swear to God, Mike, if you don't answer me. Jessica, you're being cruel. I can't believe I ever loved you. Jessica, you think you're smart? You think you won? Just wait." That last one made me pause. I knew Jessica. Knew how she thought. When she couldn't manipulate someone with guilt, she resorted to threats. And if she was threatening me, that meant she was desperate. Good. I got up, made coffee, and turned on the TV. Let her fume. Let her plot. Whatever she thought she could do, it didn't matter. I had already won. But then, another message. This time, from an unknown number. "You think she's the only one who lost everything? You've got another thing coming, buddy." I stared at the screen, a slow, cold realization creeping up my spine. Jessica wasn't alone in this. And if she couldn't take me down herself, she had just found someone who would try. I didn't recognize the number, but I knew exactly who it was. Ryan's people. The gym buddies. The side friends. The guys who had known exactly what was going on but never said a word. Maybe even encouraged it. And now that their leader was gone, they were pissed. I tossed my phone onto the counter, shaking my head. Pathetic. Jessica must have run straight to them, whining about how I ruined her life. Maybe she thought they'd intimidate me. Maybe she thought I'd be scared. She still didn't get it. I had already lost everything worth losing. Now, I had nothing left to fear. But just in case, I took a screenshot of the number and forwarded it to my lawyer. If she or any of her little minions tried anything, I'd make sure there was evidence. And if they came knocking? Well, let's just say I'd be ready. By noon, the calls had stopped. The messages slowed. Jessica must have realized she had no leverage left. No money, no sympathy, no one left to manipulate. And I was done. I packed up the last of my things and left the apartment, our apartment, for good. The lease was in my name. The eviction notice was already filed. By the end of the week, Jessica would be out on the street. She had played the game. She had lost. And I was finally free.
I stood there, stunned, watching the flames eat through the corner of my passport like it was just another grocery receipt. The cheap metal trash can in our laundry room glowed orange. My wife, Danielle, didn't even flinch as the embers rose. She lit a cigarette like she was in a goddamn movie and looked me dead in the eyes. "Stay home and take care of the kids," she said, dragging smoke through those lips I once thought were the softest thing in the world. "That's what poor husbands do. I'm going to relax." She walked past me, her heels echoing down the hallway like a countdown. Click, click, click. I didn't say a word. Not one. Because words weren't needed anymore. I knew everything. I knew about Travis, the yoga instructor with the abs and the IQ of a doorknob. I knew about the hotel bookings under her maiden name. I knew she drained 15 grand from our joint account last week, told me it was for home renovations, then came home smelling like a hotel spa and cheap cologne. I knew about the passport. I just didn't think she'd have the balls to actually burn it. But she did. And that's the exact moment I decided I was done pretending. What Danielle didn't know, what she never cared to ask, was that while she was busy cheating, lying, and trashing our family, I just sold my AI security startup for $2 billion. With AB, the ink had dried yesterday, and I hadn't told a soul, especially not her, because Danielle didn't care about the man I was becoming. She was too obsessed with the one she thought I wasn't. So, while she finished packing her designer bags for some beach getaway with her boy toy, I quietly booked a private jet to Zurich. I had backup passports. She forgot I'd traveled enough to know the value of redundancy. I called my lawyer, froze the accounts, took the kids to my sister's place under the guise of a sleepover, left my wedding ring on the counter like a tombstone, and I made sure that before I left, she'd get what she truly deserved. You see, Danielle loved theatrics. So I gave her a show. That night, I packed everything valuable I had into 2 duffels, hard drives, documents, heirlooms, and left one thing behind. A single white envelope taped to the mirror in our bedroom. On the front, in bold black marker, I wrote just 3 words. "Good luck, sweetheart." Inside was a printed screenshot of her text messages to Travis. The ones where she called me a useless wallet, said my brain was worth less than his tongue, and joked about ditching the kids with the babysitter forever. Beneath that, a receipt. Not just any receipt. The wire confirmation for the full $2 billion transfer. With one highlighted line. Account holder, Lucas Graves. Beneficiary, Lucas Graves. Exclusions, Danielle Graves. The next morning, while she was probably waking up in some overpriced suite next to a guy who thinks reading means Instagram captions, she opened the envelope. And the screams started. But I wasn't there to hear them. I was already in the sky, 37,000 feet above her lies, champagne in hand, watching the sunrise pour gold over the Alps. Free, calm, and for the first time in years, powerful. This was just the beginning. She thought she could humiliate me, burn my identity, erase my worth like it was nothing. She had no idea. Because what Danielle didn't know is that I don't get even. I get creative. The next part started with a phone call I didn't answer. Then 5. Then 10. She went from smug silence to frantic desperation in less than 12 hours. I watched the screen light up again. Danielle, wife. The irony almost made me laugh. I let it ring while I sipped espresso on the balcony of my Zurich penthouse. Snow was falling softly outside, muffling the noise of the world. Meanwhile, her entire world was unraveling back home. By noon, she'd called my sister, my old college roommate, even my ex before her. That's how badly she was spiraling. But what really sent her over the edge? The house. She came back to an empty home. Furniture? Gone. Art? Gone. Jewelry she hadn't stashed? Gone. Even the Tesla disappeared from the driveway like it had never been there. In its place, a single delivery box in the living room, wrapped in glossy red paper. Inside was a burner phone and a note. Smile. Everything you said and did is saved in HD. Because Danielle had never once considered that I might have cameras in the house. She thought I was the clueless tech nerd she could walk all over while she played the leading role in her own sleazy soap opera. She forgot I'd built facial recognition software before she learned how to contour. She forgot who she married. But I didn't forget. I didn't forget the way she used to look at me when we first met, like I was her entire world. I didn't forget how she slowly replaced those looks with glares, how compliments turned into criticisms, How every dinner became another passive-aggressive audition for Travis's approval. She stopped being my partner years ago. I was just too dumb, or too hopeful, to admit it. You know the moment that finally killed the last piece of love I had for her? It wasn't the texts. It wasn't the passport. It wasn't even when she called me a leash-holding peasant to Travis like some kind of reality show villain. It was when my daughter, my sweet, gentle Leah, asked me, "Daddy, why doesn't Mommy smile at you anymore?" That tore me apart more than anything Danielle ever said. And now she was getting what she gave. She tried calling again. This time I picked up. I wanted to hear it. "Lucas, oh my God, where are you? What is going on? Why is the safe empty? The cars, what the hell did you do?" Her voice was cracked, frantic. It had none of the arrogance from the day before. No swagger, no seduction, just panic. I waited a beat, then said calmly, "I did exactly what any poor husband would do, Danielle. I stayed home." "What does that even mean? Where are the kids?" "You kidnapped them. They're with people who actually give a damn about them. Unlike their mother, who abandoned them to relax, with a personal trainer she barely knows." "You're insane. This is illegal. Lucas, you can't just." "I can do a lot of things. Especially now that I'm $2 billion richer and legally removed you from everything we built, including our marriage." She went silent. I heard the rustle of her pacing, the crack in her voice when she whispered, "You're lying." "No, Danielle. That's your department. I'm done playing your fool." And then I ended the call. Let her sit in that house with her ego deflating, her lover ghosting her the second he realizes there's no money, no perks, no private jet coming to scoop them up from Maldives. All she had left was ashes, the same ones she thought she'd bury me under. But I'm not the one who got burned. She is. 3 days passed before I heard from her again. I was at a ski lodge in Davos, watching Leah and my son, Ethan, laugh as they tried snowboarding for the first time. The cold air stung my face, but it felt cleaner than anything I'd breathed in years. Fresh, real, nothing fake about these mountains. Nothing two-faced about the snow. My phone buzzed again. A message this time. No name. Just a number. "I'm pregnant." I stared at it. Not because I believed her, I didn't. But because I knew it was the next pathetic chapter in her script. That woman couldn't even fake tears right. Now she was trying to fake life? I didn't reply, but I knew I'd hear from her again. And I did. That night, the hotel staff told me someone had tried to book a room under my name. She'd flown to Switzerland, somehow. Probably begged Travis to buy the ticket, then dumped him mid-flight once she realized she needed a new host. She was nothing if not opportunistic. I gave the staff strict instructions. If anyone claiming to be my wife showed up, they were to be escorted off the property and given a printed copy of the prenup, the same prenup she once laughed at and called paranoid tech bro energy. Funny how those papers became my shield now. Back home, she started crumbling. Social media caught wind, not from me, but from her. She posted cryptic quotes about betrayal, photos of herself crying with captions like, "Some people never loved you. They just used you," and a weird story claiming I'd emotionally manipulated her for years. That one almost made me laugh. Manipulated? I paid for her mother's cancer treatments, bought her brother out of jail, and covered up the DUI she got while I was at a conference in Singapore. Manipulated? No. I just gave a snake a throne and got bit. I'd see her face on my screen, her eyes wide and desperate, pretending to be the victim. But behind the mascara and fake pain, I saw the same woman who whispered into another man's neck, "He's boring. I fake everything with him." Those words stuck to my brain like rust. But it wasn't just the betrayal. It was the glee she had while doing it. She enjoyed watching me suffer. There was this one night, just before it all collapsed, where I asked her to come to bed with me. I was exhausted from back-to-back investor meetings, barely had enough energy to keep my eyes open. She looked me dead in the face and said, "No offense, Lucas, but I'd rather use my vibrator than listen to you breathe." And then she laughed, like it was a joke, like that wasn't a dagger straight through my chest. That night, I slept in the guest room, and I cried, not because I was weak, but because I finally understood she didn't see me as a man anymore, just a placeholder. And now she wanted sympathy? Now she was desperate because the ATM walked away? She forgot who I was before her. Before the veneers, the fake tans, the Instagram filters, I was the guy who built something from nothing, who pulled 20-hour days in a dark apartment, chasing a dream no one believed in. Not even her. She came for the rewards, not the work. And when the rewards weren't fast enough, she found someone who could give her attention instead of a future. But attention fades. Futures don't. She made her choice. And I made mine. By the end of that week, she was standing in front of my sister's house, pounding on the door like a lunatic. My sister, Emily, had already texted me a heads up. She's here. Here's a mess, yelling about the kids. I didn't let her in. I told her to stay inside, lock the doors, and film everything. Danielle had a habit of twisting reality, and I wasn't about to give her any more stage time without receipts. She screamed loud enough that the neighbors came out. Where's my daughter? Where's my son? You can't keep them from me. She never asked how they were, just demanded them like she misplaced a purse. Ethan was inside, drawing dinosaurs at the kitchen table. Leah? She was on the couch, snuggled in a blanket, eating popcorn and watching Zootopia. Neither of them asked about their mom. That broke me more than I'd admit, because I realized they didn't miss her. Not like kids should miss a parent. They didn't even flinch when she was gone. And that wasn't their fault. It was hers. She chose beach weekends over bedtime stories. Chose to be Travis's plaything instead of Leah's role model. She skipped Ethan's science fair to fly to New York and clear her head. She was never there. And kids notice. That night, I finally called her. She picked up on the first ring, probably thinking the tantrum worked. Lucas, she said, breathless. We need to talk. No, I interrupted. You need to listen. Silence. I gave you a life most people only dream of. And instead of building with me, you lit it on fire for a fling with a trainer who uses lip gloss and calls himself T-Money. You burned my passport. You tried to erase me. You tried to turn our kids into weekend accessories. You think you can just scream and cry now and it'll all go back to normal? More silence. Then she whispered, I messed up. You destroyed everything. I shot back. That's not a mess. That's demolition. I heard her sniff. The fake kind. The one she used when she wanted to be comforted after an argument she started. But it had no effect now. Her voice dropped. Lucas, please. I didn't know you were doing so well. I thought we were sinking, and I panicked. I was scared. No, you were selfish. She didn't deny it. I could picture her pacing around whatever hotel she was hiding in, clutching her phone like a lifeline, probably imagining I'd swoop in and forgive everything if she just cried hard enough. But that man, the one who bent over backward to please her, who begged for affection, who thought her coldness was his fault, he was gone. She tried one last time. What if we start over? For the kids. For us. I laughed. Not to be cruel, but because it was laughable. I left you a note, remember? I said calmly. The line went quiet. Good luck, sweetheart. That wasn't a goodbye. That was a warning. Warning for what? She asked, her voice shaking. You'll find out soon enough. And I hung up. The next morning, the video dropped. No announcements. No tags. No captions. Just a file quietly uploaded to a private YouTube link. One I shared anonymously with a handful of key people in our circle. Her parents. Her work colleagues. A couple of mutual friends. Her yoga studio's board of directors. The title? Behind Closed Doors, Danielle Graves. It was 20 minutes of raw footage. I didn't even add music. I didn't need to. Clips of her and Travis on our couch, whispering about how dumb I was. A phone call where she bragged about deleting my emails so I'd miss a meeting. Footage of her telling Leah to go watch something so she could sneak in a video call with her lover, wearing lingerie I bought her for our anniversary. And then, the cherry on top, her burning my passport. That part was in slow motion. You could see her smirk, hear her say those words. Stay home and take care of the kids. That's what poor husbands do. By noon, the video had already reached over 10,000 views. By 2, I got a call from her boss. By 5, Danielle's job was gone. Her PR agency issued a statement distancing themselves. Her yoga sponsorship deal? Terminated. Her parents tried calling me too, but I ignored them. They'd always seen her as a golden girl. Let them sit in it for once. And Travis? Oh, he folded faster than a lawn chair. Blocked her number. Deleted their pictures. Went radio silent. Because when the money dried up and the spotlight turned on, he wasn't T-Money anymore. He was just a broke guy with abs and no spine. Danielle showed up at my sister's again that night. Not screaming this time. Crying. Pleading. Hair pulled back. No makeup. Hoodie too big for her frame. She looked like a ghost of the woman she once pretended to be. Emily filmed it all through the window. Danielle sat on the front step in the rain, holding a bag of cookies and one of Ethan's old stuffed animals. I miss my babies, she whispered into the camera. I miss my family. Too late. Actions have consequences. And for once in her life, no one was protecting her from them. That night, I got an email from her. Long, rambling, apologetic in places, bitter in others. She claimed she was lost and emotionally manipulated by Travis. She said she didn't know why she did what she did, blamed childhood trauma, stress, postpartum, and then circled back to the classic. You weren't emotionally available. She wrote, I needed attention, and you were always working. As if working to build her dream life was a betrayal. I didn't respond, but I saved the email. For court, because the next phase had already started. Full custody. I had the lawyers, the resources, the evidence, and, most importantly, the kids' quiet, steady preference to stay right where they were. And Danielle? She had a bag of cookies and a sob story no one believed anymore. She didn't just lose me. She lost the version of herself she built through me. A month later, I stood in court across from her. Danielle barely looked up, her makeup thick but cracked, like it was trying to hold together a face that didn't know how to smile anymore. Her lawyer was some budget guy she probably found online, flipping through papers like he already knew he'd lost. My attorney laid out everything. The video, the texts, the financial records, witness testimonies, and most importantly, the kid's own words. Quiet, but clear. Leah said, Mommy doesn't talk to me unless her phone's off. Ethan said, Daddy makes pancakes with smiley faces. Mommy just yells. The judge didn't even take an hour to decide. Full custody. No visitation until further psychological evaluation. She cried in that courtroom, real tears this time, not for me, or even the kids, but for herself, because she realized it was over. Everything. No family, no status, no money, just the shell of a woman who bet everything on the wrong man, and burned her lifeboat in the process. As I walked out of the courthouse, Leah hugged my leg. Ethan tugged my sleeve and whispered, Can we get pizza now? I smiled for the first time in weeks. A real smile. That night, I sat with them by the fireplace in our new house. Simple, warm, full of laughter. No cameras, no lies, no ghosts. Just us. And in that moment, I realized something. She didn't ruin my life. She cleared the stage. And now, I get to build something better from the ashes of her fire. They were laughing like I wasn't even there. My name, my property, my dignity tossed around that dinner table like napkins soaked in spilled wine. Her voice sliced through the air, casual, as if she were just discussing the weather. And my ex-boyfriend will live in your beach house, she said, her fork dangling between her fingers. She didn't even look at me. She was too busy grinning across the table at her sister, Brittany, who nodded like it was the most reasonable suggestion in the world. I mean, what's the point of letting it sit there empty, she added. It's not like Ethan even uses it anymore. The way she said Ethan, like I wasn't in the damn room, like I had no pulse, no pride. I clenched my jaw so tight I thought my molars would crack. Her sister chuckled and clinked glasses with her. And their mom? Silent. Their dad? Didn't even blink. I guess I was the only one who felt the earthquake. It wasn't just the words. It was the arrogance. The pure venom in her smile. Her ex, Zach. The guy who used to get blackout drunk and beg her for a second chance. The same guy who once sent her a dozen voicemails at 2 a.m., slurring her name and calling me a placeholder. Now he was getting keys to my property? And she thought I'd just nod like a good little husband? I didn't speak. I didn't slam my fist or toss my drink. I just stared. Let them have their show. Let them believe I was just some neutered fool too soft to defend what's mine. But I knew something they didn't. I knew exactly what was waiting for them in that beach house. 7 days later, I sat in my car half a block away, engine off, phone on record. Brittany's car pulled up, trunk packed. Zach stepped out like he owned the place, sunglasses, smug smirk, holding my wife's dog in one hand like he'd already replaced me. Claire, my wife, was dressed like she was headed to Coachella. Sunglasses, sun hat, crop top. No shame, no remorse. They strolled up the drive, laughing. Claire punched in the gate code like it was hers. And then the door opened. Not by me. Not by any friend of ours. By a stranger. Tall. Military cut. Quiet. Holding a badge. Zach froze. Claire's face fell flat. She tried to backpedal, but the man had already stepped forward. Can I help you? He asked, tone calm but iron solid. I live here, Claire stammered. The man didn't blink. You don't. And then he stepped aside and let two more men walk out behind him. Legal reps, cameras rolling. Claire looked at Zach, but he was already turning around. Brittany's voice screeched from the car, "What's going on?" And I sat in my car, watching the whole thing unfold like a slow-motion car crash. The satisfaction? It wasn't just sweet. It was surgical. Because what they didn't know was that I'd transferred the deed. Rented the place out under a fake LLC I created 2 weeks ago. Filed a no trespass order. And then tipped off the media that a known scammer and a married woman were attempting to seize property under false pretenses. They didn't know, but they would. This wasn't the story of a broken man. This was the opening move of a war they never saw coming. Claire tried to smile through it, still playing her little charade. There's been a misunderstanding, she said, walking toward the man like her charm would solve it. This is my husband's property. I have access. You had access, he cut in flatly. Not anymore. You've been legally removed from all rights to the premises. Zach wasn't laughing now. His hand was already inching back toward the car. Brittany yelled something from the passenger seat, probably asking if they should call someone. But the men at the door weren't moving. One of them had a GoPro clipped to his chest, flashing red. Another one was holding documents, already reading them out loud. Something about trespassing, recorded entry, pending litigation. Claire's jaw dropped. Litigation? Are you kidding me right now? She turned to Zach, as if expecting him to do something. But Zach was already backing away, one hand raised like he wanted no part of this. And me? I was still parked at the corner, watching the collapse in real time. I felt calm, detached, like I was watching a play I'd already read the ending to. Claire turned again, this time toward the cameras. My husband's doing this. He's trying to humiliate me, she shrieked. Her voice cracked, not from pain, but from rage. The kind of rage that comes from losing control. I knew that tone too well. It was the same one she used the first time I caught her texting Zach behind my back, 9 months ago. She looked me in the eye and said, "It's nothing, just old friends catching up." Swore on her mother's life that she hadn't seen him. She even cried. Big, dramatic sobs. Made me feel like I was the one doing something wrong. And I believed her. Back then, I still wanted to. That night, as the camera crew handed over the footage, and Zach's dumb face went white when he realized it was all being recorded, I sat with a smile that didn't fade for hours. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about exposure. The next morning, Claire texted me like nothing happened. Can we talk? No apology. No shame. Just like she always did, pretend the fire wasn't still burning. I didn't answer. So she started calling. 25 missed calls in 2 hours. Then she tried her favorite weapon, guilt. I'm sorry. You blindsided me. You didn't have to go that far. We can fix this. She still didn't get it. It was never about fixing it. It was about her being the kind of woman who thought she could bring her ex into my home and expect me to play along like some pathetic doormat. She never thought I had it in me. That was always her blind spot. She married a builder, a provider, a nice guy. The one who showed up to family dinners in pressed shirts, paid for her sister's rehab, bought her dad a new truck when his broke down. She thought she could roll over that man forever. She forgot that even nice guys have breaking points. And mine? Came with a pin, a lawyer, and a 4K drone feed of her dragging a suitcase full of Zach's junk up to the porch of a home she no longer had any right to step into. The part that really got me, though, the part that sealed the coffin shut, was what I found in her laptop the day after the dinner. An open tab. Google Drive. A folder titled Future Plans. Inside? Flight confirmations for 2. Job listings in California. Applications for beachfront rentals under Zach's name. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd replaced me. She was already halfway to erasing me. Only I got there first. And now the only place she was going was down. The texts kept coming for days, each one more desperate, more unhinged. First it was guilt. Then rage. Then the begging. She even had the audacity to send a voice note crying, saying she didn't mean for it to happen like this. As if she accidentally told her ex to move into my house over family dinner. As if she just tripped and fell onto betrayal. I didn't answer a single one. But I listened. Not for her sake, for mine. I wanted to hear the unraveling. The cracks in her voice. The exact moment her illusion of power shattered. You embarrassed me, she whispered in one message. In front of my family. In front of Zach. You made me look like some kind of. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. She was some kind of. The next voicemail came at 2 a.m., slurred, probably drunk. You ruined everything. You're not even a man. You just sit there with your smug silence. You think you're better than me? No, I didn't think I was better. I knew I was. But that night, I did more than just listen. I finally answered, but not her. I called her boss, left a polite message, informed them that my wife had attempted to misappropriate assets of mine for personal gain, including illegally transferring property that wasn't hers to begin with, that she was under pending investigation, that she had used the company phone and email to coordinate it all. I didn't need her to be fired. I needed her to panic. 2 days later, Claire showed up at my office. Not at home. Not where we used to live. My office. Dressed like she was on a runway, with her lips curled into that fake, baby we need to talk, smile she used to weaponize in arguments. She didn't even wait to be let in. My assistant tried to block her, but Claire shoved right past, barged in like she still had the right. She didn't say hello. Didn't ask how I was. She went straight into it. You're trying to destroy me, she said, standing over my desk like she had a moral leg to stand on. I didn't stand. I didn't speak. I slid the folder across the desk. Emails. Screenshots. Voice memos. Her plans. Her lies. Her own words. Her face went pale, then red. Her jaw twitched. I waited for the denial, the waterworks, the gaslighting, but none of it came. Just that empty silence where her confidence used to be. What do you want? She finally whispered. I leaned forward, calm, quiet, and said, I want you gone. Completely. Irrevocably. And I want you to know that I was never the weak one. That shook her. Because deep down, Claire always believed she was playing chess while I was still learning checkers. She never realized I was building a new board the entire time. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She left. 3 hours later, her lawyer called, trying to get ahead of what was coming. I didn't answer. That same night, I changed the locks to our old place and left the keys with the realtor. It was going on the market in the morning. But before I handed it off, I did one last thing. I walked through each room, one by one, remembering what I built, what I gave, and what she took. Then I left a single envelope taped to the bedroom mirror. Inside, a printed photo of Zach, from the security cam feed, holding her dog, trying to unlock a door that no longer opened for either of them. I wrote 2 words under it in black ink. Nice try. The silence after that was better than any apology. Claire didn't text, didn't call. For the first time in years, she had nothing to say. No lies to spin. No smug tone. Just the void she left behind, echoing louder than her voice ever did. But silence doesn't mean peace. Not when someone like her is involved. A week later, I got a call from her sister Brittany. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail. You've made your point. Claire's a wreck. Can't sleep. Can't eat. Just let it go already. She's still your wife, for God's sake. I almost laughed. Still my wife? That line alone told me everything I needed to know about their whole damn family. Loyalty wasn't based on truth. It was based on convenience. Claire's image was crumbling, so now they wanted to patch it up, pretend it never happened, repaint her as the victim. But I was done being the quiet one. I sent Brittany a reply. 1 sentence. That's all. I let her talk too long, now it's my turn. And I meant it. I finally started talking. To her company's board of directors. To the real estate firm that had Claire listed as a co-signer on 3 separate properties funded with my money. To the financial advisor I'd hired months ago, who'd been tracing every dollar she pulled from our joint accounts. The web unraveled quickly. Turns out, Zach wasn't just her ex. He was her business partner. The rentals? In both their names. The investments? Routed through shell accounts connected to his cousin. The worst part? She used my money to start their little empire. My bonuses. My savings. Even my late father's inheritance, which I gave her access to because I trusted her. Because I loved her. And she used it to build a life with someone else behind my back. I sat with that truth for a long time. And when it finally sank in, what she really was, how deep the betrayal ran, I didn't cry. I burned. But not recklessly. Not emotionally. I became a surgeon with fire. Claire was still trying to play defense. Posting inspirational quotes online. Pretending she was focusing on her healing journey. Subtle jabs. Victim narratives. A picture of a wine glass and a caption that said, some lessons come with scars. I left a comment under it. Some scars come from playing with matches. She deleted it in less than a minute. Then I sent her a legal notice. Divorce filing. Immediate and final. No contest. No settlement. No negotiation. My lawyer made sure of it. And when her lawyer tried to push back, Tried to ask for one last conversation to resolve this amicably. I agreed. On one condition. It would be public. In front of a mediator. In a room with witnesses. Claire didn't show. She sent her lawyer alone. But that was fine. Because all I wanted was a signature. And when I got it, I walked out of that room lighter than I'd felt in years. Not because I'd won, but because I was free. I didn't throw a party. Didn't go out drinking with the boys or post some cryptic message online about new beginnings. That's what Claire would have done. Turn the fallout into a performance. But I was never like her. I never needed a stage. Just peace. And peace, it turns out, is loud in its own way. The morning after the divorce was finalized, I sat on the balcony of my new place, smaller, humbler, mine. No shared closets. No trace of her perfume in the air. Just the hum of the city and the sting of early sun on my skin. There was a kind of stillness in me I hadn't felt in years. Then came the knock. Not a metaphorical one. A real one. I opened the door, and there she was. Claire. No makeup. Hoodie over her head. Sunglasses hiding whatever version of shame she could muster. Holding a plastic bag like she was bringing peace offerings to a warlord. I didn't come to fight, she said quickly. I leaned on the frame, arms crossed. She reached into the bag and pulled out my dad's watch. She'd taken it months ago. Said she wanted to get it cleaned. Then forgot it existed. Now she was here, like some tragic actress playing her final scene, handing it back like it absolved her. I figured you'd want it. I took the bag. Didn't say thank you. Didn't invite her in. She stood there for a second longer, probably expecting something. A speech. A crack in my armor. A memory to crawl through. But I gave her nothing. She finally said, "You really meant it, huh?" I raised an eyebrow. This divorce. This whole thing. You really ended it. I stared at her for a long time. Then I said, "No, Claire. You ended it. I just cleaned up the wreckage." That hit her. She bit her lip. Looked away. And for a flicker of a second, I thought she might apologize. But of course not. Instead, she muttered, "You'll regret this one day." And that was all I needed to hear to know she hadn't changed one bit. That she never would. "Goodbye, Claire," I said, and shut the door. There was no dramatic music. No slow-motion scene. Just a simple, firm click. A week later, I got a message from Zach. On a fake account. A long, rambling, passive-aggressive rant disguised as advice. "She's hurting, man. You didn't have to go nuclear. We could have all figured this out like adults." That was the moment I realized something even darker. They still believed they were the victims. That I had overreacted. That quietly handing over my house, my money, my trust, my life to a lying, manipulating pair of snakes was somehow the adult move. I didn't reply. I blocked him. Then I poured myself a drink, sat back on the same balcony, and smiled. Because for the first time in years, the drama wasn't mine. It was theirs. 3 weeks later, the fallout began to spread. Claire's firm quietly let her go. No announcement, no email. Just gone, her desk cleaned out overnight. Her name removed from the website like it had never been there. I didn't ask how it happened. I didn't need to. I'd already handed them everything, proof of her using company funds for personal trips, using work hours to draft investment proposals with Zach for properties funded by my inheritance. It wasn't revenge. It was documentation. Facts. She played dirty. I played smart. Zach? He didn't fare much better. The beach house debacle made the rounds online, more than I expected. A local paper picked it up, then a few finance blogs, then one of those viral YouTube channels that love messy relationship drama. They blurred faces, changed names, but anyone who knew us? They knew. And Zach? He thrived on image. The self-made investor who sold courses, ran webinars, pitched startups on Instagram. Overnight, his comments were flooded. "Is this the guy who tried to squat in his lover's husband's beach house? How's the free rent, bro? Bet that LLC stands for lying, cheating, clown." He turned his page private. Then he deleted it. I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy watching the walls close in on them. But it wasn't about that anymore. It was about rebuilding. I started spending more time with my own thoughts. Not the poison ones Claire planted in me. Not the self-doubt she disguised as tough love. Not the gaslighting. Just silence. Honest silence. And in that space, I started remembering who I was before her. I remembered that I used to write. That I used to run every morning. Not because I was trying to stay attractive for someone who never looked at me, but because I loved the rhythm of my own breath. I remembered what it felt like to laugh without checking her reaction first. One night, I walked past the mirror and barely recognized myself. Not because I looked different, but because for once, I didn't see someone begging to be enough. I saw someone free. Then, a letter came. No return address, but I knew that handwriting. Claire. Inside were 2 pages. One was a scribbled, chaotic apology, half-hearted, defensive, laced with little jabs. You never tried to understand how hard it was for me. You were cold. You worked too much. Zach was there when you weren't. It wasn't an apology. It was a justification. The second page? A picture. From our wedding day. She'd written one sentence underneath. If you ever loved me at all, please just forget what I did. I folded the picture. Didn't tear it. Didn't burn it. I put it in a drawer. Not to hold on to her. To remind myself of the lie I survived. 1 month after that letter, I walked into a bar I hadn't been to in years. Not to drink away thoughts of her, but because I finally felt like being among people again. Real people. No masks, no games. I sat at the far end of the bar. Ordered a whiskey. Neat. The bartender nodded, poured. No questions, no recognition. Perfect. Halfway through my drink, I noticed her. Not Claire. A stranger. She wasn't trying to get attention. No fake laugh. No dramatic eye rolls. No checking who's watching before every gesture. She just sat, sipping her drink and scrolling through her phone, smiling softly to herself. I didn't talk to her. Not that night. But I watched how easy it looked for someone to just exist. No performance. No manipulation. And I realized how long I'd been starved for something simple. Honest. Uncomplicated. That night, I went home alone. By choice. I opened the drawer where I'd left the picture Claire sent me and looked at it one last time. I studied the edges. The fake joy. Her hand clutching mine so tightly you'd think she wanted to own me. Then I took it out of the drawer. And I walked it to the fireplace. No music played. No cinematic moment. Just flames. When it curled at the edges and disappeared into ash, I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding for years. Claire didn't text after that. Not even on what would have been our anniversary. But Brittany did. Another voicemail. I don't know what you said to her, but Claire's different. Cold. Silent. Honestly, it's kind of scary. You should talk to her. She needs help. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't care, but because I did for too long. I wasn't her emotional janitor anymore. I wasn't the guy who stuck around to catch the pieces after she smashed everything to feel powerful. I was done being her mirror. I started doing things I used to put off. Took a trip up north. Visited the lake where I spent summers as a kid. No agenda. No schedule. Just me. The stillness wasn't lonely. It was clean. One morning on the dock, I watched a storm roll in. Thunder in the distance. The sky cracked open just above the tree line. And I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I was proud of myself. Not for winning, but for walking away before I lost myself completely. Claire thought she broke me. But what she really did, she peeled off everything fake and showed me the man still standing underneath. One who never needed her permission to rebuild. Weeks passed. Not in a blur, not in agony, just peacefully. Days filled with things I chose, moments that belonged entirely to me. No second-guessing my words. No tiptoeing around someone else's moods. No pretending everything was fine just to avoid another argument that always circled back to how I wasn't enough. I started saying yes to invitations I used to ignore. Dinner with old friends. A hike. A jazz night downtown. People noticed something different in me. You look lighter, one of my coworkers said. I didn't explain. Just smiled. Because how do you explain the kind of freedom that comes after surviving a storm you didn't see coming, but one you know would have drowned you if you stayed? One afternoon, as I was leaving the gym, I passed by Zach. He looked rough. Sunken cheeks. Greasy hair. Hoodie up. Alone. He saw me. Stopped. I didn't think you'd actually walk away, he said, almost like he was admitting defeat. I stared at him for a moment. I didn't feel anger, or pity, or revenge. Just indifference. Yeah, I said. I know. And I walked past. He didn't follow. He didn't call out. Because that chapter was closed. Claire tried one last time. An email. Subject line. Please just read. Inside was a wall of text. A messy blend of nostalgia, regret, excuses. She said she missed my steadiness. That she realized now how safe I made her feel. That she wanted to meet, just to talk. I didn't reply. Instead, I archived it. Not out of cruelty, but because there was nothing left to say. She had already said everything that mattered when she invited her ex to live in the home I built for us. when she let her sister co-sign the decision, when she looked me in the eye over a family dinner and treated me like a footnote in my own life. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need closure. I had something better. Clarity. So here's what I'd say to any man who's sitting where I once sat. Don't waste your life trying to fix someone who breaks you just to see if you'll still stay. Don't beg for respect from someone who enjoys watching you shrink. And don't ever mistake betrayal for a lesson in forgiveness. Some betrayals are warnings. Some doors are meant to be locked from the outside. Let them knock. Let them scream. But never open it again. Because the real victory isn't in destroying them. It's in rebuilding yourself so completely, they don't even recognize the man they once tried to break. And when they do, it's too damn late.